Here with me this week is David Bailey, CEO of BTC Inc. I know a lot of you are familiar with him, and a lot of you are following his tweets related to President Trump suddenly endorsing Bitcoin. So, David, welcome to the show. We have so much to talk about.
Hey, Natalie, thank you for having me on.
Well, let's get right into it because a lot of people are sort of crediting you and your team for orange pilling President Trump. Talk to us about what's happening because this is a huge shift.
Yeah, so I love getting all the credit. I wish that was accurate. There's a lot of people in the president's orbit that are making the case and advocating for Bitcoin and crypto. And so it is a team effort to kind of advance our cause there. But yeah, there is a lot happening. And it's really, I think, just the start of what's to come.
Can you give us a little bit of the backstory? Because, I mean, people recall years ago, pretty much every politician was saying, no to Bitcoin. It's just for criminal actors, nefarious activity. And I think President Trump was well known for saying that he believed it threatened the dollar. So how did we get to this turnaround?
So, we've been communicating with the Trump campaign for the past few months, pitching and educating on the topic, the opportunity, what's at stake with voters and the amount of industry backing he can get, and policy items that I think our industry would really care about, and just trying to make the case for Bitcoin, as much as possible. I think, in a macro sense, like the Bitcoin community has grown a lot. So like the signs in society and culture are there that like we're actually becoming a pretty big voter bloc. And then things kind of hit an acceleration point after the Mar-a-Lago event that was about Trump NFTs. And the president went out and like made his first public statements. And I think the reaction to him saying anything on the topic positive really kind of, was like eye-opening of like, wow, there is a lot of populist energy behind this topic. And so I would say everything kind of rapidly accelerated at that point. Yeah, it's every week there's kind of a new development, and it gets a little bit wilder and a little bit more momentum behind it.
Well, he recently shared on Truth Social that he wants Bitcoin to be made in the USA. He talked about Bitcoin mining. I know that there was a Bitcoin miner roundtable that recently happened with a lot of people tweeting their photos with Trump. But can you talk about, what was actually discussed during that mining roundtable? Because it certainly seemed to make an impression.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not authorized to really speak on anything like official what happened. There's some reporting that's out there in the public. I think CNBC did an article that is fairly descriptive of the situation, but I'll let their article kind of stand on its own, and I'm not endorsing it or anything. If I were to just say broad strokes, the interest around Bitcoin mining is really what we've been saying for many, many years within our industry. Like Bitcoin mining is aligned with the president's platform of American energy abundance, of restoring America's infrastructure, of bringing jobs back to the Rust Belt, the Middle America, to bringing back fossil fuels to America. And so there's a lot of alignment that exists between Bitcoin mining and Trump's existing policy platform. And I think those topics really resonated with him.
Coin Stories is brought to you by Bitdeer, where the power of Bitcoin mining is at your fingertips. As a publicly traded leader, Bitdeer's global reach and scale means they're everywhere you need them to be, ensuring you're part of the thriving Bitcoin economy. Bitdeer's not just mining, they are industry pioneers, and Bitdeer stands alone as the only vertically integrated, technology-focused Bitcoin mining company. What does that mean? Well, they're not just deploying, but developing the latest tech to make Bitcoin mining more efficient and effective. And with the industry's most experienced leadership team, innovation is in their DNA. And it shows. A quarter of their workforce is dedicated to research and development, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in Bitcoin mining. Now they're leveraging years of expertise in data center and cloud management into high-performance computing through a recently announced partnership with NVIDIA. Join Bitdeer in reshaping the world of Bitcoin mining. Learn more at bitdeer.com and explore how they are pioneering the future today. Well, last year, I remember going to the Bitcoin conference, and I think somewhere around there, RFK Jr. announced that he was going to protect the right to self-custody, and he was pro-Bitcoin. And I think he shared that he bought Bitcoin for his kids. Do you know does Trump own Bitcoin?
I can't comment on that question, but I'm hopeful that there'll be more attention to that issue in the future.
David, you can't give us too much, but I totally understand. I know that we're probably going to get some announcements soon. You've been teasing a lot of it on Twitter. Well, let me ask you. Let's zoom out here because a lot of people are concerned that Bitcoin is going to become politicized and that it's going to be a right wing or a left wing thing. Can you share your take? Because inherently, it's a neutral technology and it is bipartisan.
Yeah, absolutely. I really don't buy this argument because it's a tool. It's a technology. Like Bitcoin doesn't have an opinion on anything that's happening in the society or in the world. So it's only what we project onto it. The reason why it's become a partisan issue is because one political party has rallied behind it, and the other political party has gone on the attack against it. And so that is driving the user base to, affiliate with those that want to work with them and resist those that want to stop them. I mean, Bitcoin is unaffected by politics, but Bitcoin users are not unaffected by politics. So, I think that what's happening is a natural progression as Bitcoin really becomes the most powerful political force on the planet. And I hate that there are people who feel like I sympathize with people who are from the left and hate to see what's going on. But the answer is not to tell the other side to be quiet. The answer is to go to your existing political faction and advocate why they need to embrace Bitcoin too. So Bitcoin should be a bipartisan issue where both sides are championing why Bitcoin is good for America for their own, different perspectives of why it's good. There's a great progressive case for Bitcoin, and there's a great conservative case for Bitcoin. So, it doesn't need to be a partisan issue. I think in the future it won't be a partisan issue, but the way we make it not a partisan issue is by making it such an overwhelming liability to go against Bitcoin that the political establishment has no choice but to work with it. Like that's how we make it bipartisan. And it's already kind of happening. There's already movements happening within the Democratic Party behind the scenes. There's all sorts of chaos being created from this. And, there's a lot of pressure and friction being created right now about pivoting their strategy. And, the White House has been fielding questions all week long. What's the president, has Biden seen Trump with the Bitcoin miners? What's his opinion on Bitcoin mining? What's his opinion on self-custody Bitcoin? And they're just saying, no comment, no comment, no comment. I can tell you that behind the scenes, they are very stressed about this dynamic, and that, Elizabeth Warren is really leading them down the wrong path that's out of touch with, the public.
Yeah, you make some really great points. I mean, it only hurts you at this point to be against Bitcoin. And there are so many voters that are really passionate about this and want to just be able to save so that they can take care of their families and plan for their futures. Can you talk a little bit about what about people who are watching this and think, well, what if these are just promises to get elected? Like, how do we hold the people that are running for office accountable so that they do actually protect Bitcoin, the right to self-custody? And what are the priorities? Like when a president gets in office, what can or should they do when it comes to Bitcoin?
Yeah. So, first off, he is saying these things to get elected. That's how elections are supposed to work. You're supposed to figure out what people want, and then you're supposed to promise that you'll get those things done. And then those people rally around you because you're telling them you're going to get done what they want. And then you win the election and you follow through. Like that's the whole process. So people are like, oh, he's just doing this to win votes. It's like, yeah, that's the point of an election, is to win votes. So yeah, I think, the question about how do we hold him accountable and how do we make sure he follows through is a great question. First off, it's we need him to be making public statements about what he's going to do as loud and as often as possible. The more that he says things in public about how he's going to champion the cause for Bitcoin, the harder it is for him to not follow through on it. So like that's number one. And so I don't know if you saw it last night. He gave a stump speech where he mentioned Bitcoin in just a rally speech. That is fantastic. Like we want him mentioning Bitcoin in every stump speech and rally that he goes to. We want him mentioning it at the RNC in his speech. It'd be great if the RNC decided to institutionalize Bitcoin into their policy platform. And so like there's a lot of different kind of milestones along the path that if things continue to progress, I think are within reach of us, really institutionalizing the support within his administration to ensure that these things happen. And then, at the end of the day, like, building a partnership or a coalition with a politician like this is a little bit like dating, and we are kind of flirting with this, candidate, and he says things that are an olive branch to us, and then the way like we should reciprocate with an olive branch back to him, and like he's learning what our interests are in the topic. Like we need to learn, what his interests are and how to make our message compatible with what his goals are. And, like we need to build the relationship as we get closer to November and beyond. And the reason I say this is because there's this attitude of kind of like, cynicism, which I understand, but it's like, hey, these are just promises, and I'm not going to believe anything until it's done. And, I'm not going to vote for this guy until he's delivered the goods. Well, it's like, okay, well, that you're kind of skipping the whole relationship building component of this, where, we're validating that the things he's saying on the campaign matter to us as voters. And when we turn out for him or when we donate to him around these issues, it signals to him, okay, there's a big constituency that cares about these things. And so I need to prioritize these things. There's so many people competing for his attention right now. So many issues. Every industry literally that exists is competing for his attention. So, it's even if he likes all the issues in Bitcoin, or he likes Bitcoin, like if we don't demonstrate that we're a big enough issue to prioritize, he's going to be focused on solving issues for the airline industry or the hospitality industry or the banking industry. So he needs to hear from us that we care. He needs to see us at rallies holding yard signs. He needs to hear loud cheers when he says Bitcoin in stump speeches. He needs to, when people interact with him, if anyone gets a chance to talk to him one-on-one, he should be congratulated on his, bold stance on this topic. And like, we should tell him that we care about this stuff. And then we need to show up at the election day. And, after he's elected, say, look, we delivered 5 million votes. We were the swing voters in Georgia. We were the swing voters in Florida. We were the swing voters in Michigan. And remind the president that if he wants to win the midterms, and if he wants his successor to carry forward his legacy and, 4 years later, that he has to follow through on the promises he made to our constituency. And if at the end of the day, it doesn't happen, it's better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all, And so we have to try. Otherwise, like, you might as well start moving it like out of the country now. And, just because it's going to get a lot worse if we don't have a significant pivot in America's policy perspective on Bitcoin.
Well, it seems like we're moving in the right direction. And let's say we do elect someone that has become pro-Bitcoin. What do you want to see done?
What do I want to see done? Well, there are many items that we want as an industry and as a community of, let's say, increasing levels of boldness. There are really big vision items that, if we deliver for the president in a big way, I think basically anything is on the table right now. So it's all about How much are we prioritized? How important does the president think this issue is for his political success and his legacy? And so, the stronger we make the case, and the more he believes that we are a core constituency of his, the bigger the asks we can make. But there's all sorts of things that we want. Like, for example, it'd be fantastic if transactions under $1,000, de minimis transactions, there was no capital gains event. It'd be awesome if Bitcoin was declared a currency and there was no capital gains on any Bitcoin transactions, just like there's not for any foreign currencies. It would be amazing if there was a government effort to build a strategic Bitcoin reserve. It would be amazing if the Trump administration, from a foreign policy perspective, champions and advocates for Bitcoin adoption globally amongst our allies. It would be amazing if there was a domestic investment in onshoring ASIC manufacturing and large-scale mining operations. It'd be amazing if Bitcoin mining, when you mine Bitcoins right now, the government treats the income earned at the time that the coins are mined rather than at the time the coins are sold into dollars. Mm-hmm. This puts a huge burden on the competitiveness of American mining. It would be fantastic if that was changed. It would be fantastic if there was clear guidance that open source developers are not at risk of being jailed for writing software. It'd be fantastic if self-custody was enshrined as a right of Americans to hold their own Bitcoin. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the table. And, sure, the country is facing really big challenges. And not just the country, the world is facing really big challenges. And, we talk a big game in our industry that Bitcoin fixes this, that Bitcoin is the solution for these problems. And we have the most powerful person in the world who effectively runs the world order, who is listening to us right now about what should we do with Bitcoin to solve big problems in America. And so if we actually believe the things that we say, which I believe we do, I do, then we need to be making kind of bold proposals of this is how we can solve America's challenges. This is how we can create energy abundance in America. And we can, 10x the amount of energy we're producing. There's big vision stuff. And I think for Trump, I think Trump, this is his last term. He'll be president. He's had an unbelievably successful business career. He has fought, off impeachments, criminal convictions, asset seizure. Everything that could be thrown at the president has been thrown at him. And so if he wins in November, he is going into the White House with a mandate from the American voting base to do big things. And I think that he wants to make policy that is transformational for America, that will preserve his legacy so that 200 years from now, they're not talking about, Trump's drama with, Elizabeth Warren, but they're talking about Trump as an Andrew Jackson who, fundamentally changed America's monetary policy or monetary system, or fundamentally shifted the direction and course that America was heading. So he cares about, having that legacy. And I think Bitcoin, is the most powerful thing he could champion to have that. It's as transformational as the internet is. And, there's a lot of things that maybe Bill Clinton doesn't want to be remembered for. But I think, in the scheme of things, 100 years from now, he's going to be credited as the president who helped the internet thrive in America. And so I think Trump needs to be the president who preserves the relevance of the U.S. dollar and America's place in the world through utilizing the future of money.
Yeah, I mean, the items that you gave on that amazing list, it would be so great to see any American president embrace Bitcoin in that way. and usher in this new era of prosperity and opportunity for so many people. I saw Balaji tweet,
And
and actually,
I missed one key one: commuting Ross Ulbricht's sentence, which he's
oh,
already
that's right.
committed to
Yeah.
doing publicly. That's a huge one. That is a huge one. So I just want to make sure I mentioned that one too. We got to have him
Yes.
follow through on that, and he's promised to do it on day one. So not on week one, day one.
Right. No, I know a lot of the members of the community were so excited when he actually said that. I think Ross's mom tweeted on his behalf on his Twitter page. Balaji recently tweeted, or actually I think it was back in 2021, that this next election was going to be not red versus blue, but orange versus green, the Bitcoiners versus essentially fiat. Do you think that that's what it's shaping up to be?
I think we're in the beginning of that. So I think let's go back to like the Republican Democrats, like the Democrat resistance to Bitcoin. I think that the Democratic political faction is the most powerful political faction that exists in the world, without a doubt. They have control of the money printer. They have control of the presidency. They have control of the World Economic Forum. They have control of the universities. They have control of the media. They have the apparatuses of power of the world are controlled by the Democratic Party or neoliberal worldview. So it doesn't get bigger than that. Like that's bigger than the CCP. It's the biggest single political faction. The fact that Bitcoin in 15 years has grown so much in size that the Democratic Party is going to have to capitulate to Bitcoin or face losing control of the apparatus of power, just demonstrates how much we've grown and the trajectory that the world is on right now. And they're going to capitulate. And the Democratic Party, how quick is their voter base growing? I don't know. It might be shrinking. It probably shrinking, but like take this, any other political faction other than Bitcoin. What's its rate of growth? 5%, 10%, 15%. Okay, annualize Bitcoin's rate of growth. It's like 100% a year. And we're already at the level that the most powerful political forces in the world are having to capitulate. Where are we going to be 4 years from now? So the politically savvy, those that are already in the establishment that have like wide open eyes, I guess, like they're not idiots. Like they see the change of the wind of change blowing, let's say, and they can extrapolate where this is going. And I think that you're going to see a lot of defections from the political establishment to our political movement very rapidly. And as that happens, I think it will kind of lay bare that it's not like left versus right. It is orange versus green for sure.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I hope that in this sly roundabout way that this technology is, organically growing, that it can actually shrink the size of government and its influence and its ability to intervene and manipulate, especially over the long run. That it really is my hope. Okay, my last question on Trump before we pivot to just a few other questions on different topics. You've met him now. Your team has worked with him. Most people just know what they see on various news channels. A lot of them are biased one way or another. Is there anything that you've sort of picked up on or learned that might surprise people? It's time for a quick break to hear these messages from my partners who make this podcast possible. Next up, Bitcoin 2024, the world's largest Bitcoin conference, is coming to Nashville this July. Join us for 3 amazing days of keynotes, panels, networking events, and my Women of Bitcoin brunch. The Bitcoin conference is where I launched my podcast 3 years ago. You never know what can happen or who you can meet here. Head to b.tc/conference and use the code HODL for 10% off. Next up, Speed Bitcoin Lightning Wallet, one of the fastest growing Bitcoin wallets out there. Speed is a secure, low-cost way to send and receive Bitcoin instantly. It's super simple and scores high user ratings, and you can even use it to shop gift cards of your favorite brands to earn rewards. Download Speed using the QR code on the screen or the link in my show notes. And finally, the why of Bitcoin is easy to grasp, but the how can be so confusing. The Bitcoin Way is a professional Bitcoin IT and security team offering personalized one-on-one support that guides you through cold storage, setting up nodes, inheritance planning, privacy best practices, and more. Don't take my word for it. Take 82-year-old customer Bill's.
Give the Bitcoin Way a try. You will be well on your way to owning and protecting the greatest money ever discovered.
Set up your free 30-minute consultation today. All right, back to the show.
It shouldn't surprise people. I'm going to sound like such a Trump fan from saying this, but he is extremely charismatic. He is a really funny guy. He is really good at social interactions in a private setting and reading body language and knowing when to listen and knowing when to, pivot the conversation to being, decisive or, business focused. And, he is really a boss. I mean, he is really a cool guy. And so, it makes sense why he's had success in the business world and why he's, been able to make it as far in his career as he has. But I think people would be surprised that even if you disagreed with the president, if you were to have a one-on-one conversation with him, he would find ways to find common ground with you. And people would walk out of the room being like, wow, like that guy doesn't get a fair shake. So, I've been super impressed. And, I've been super impressed also by his management style or maybe, some would maybe call it lack thereof. It's a very intentional, style of getting the most out of the people around him, to deliver the maximum they possibly can, by creating intentional chaos. And it's a kind of a very savvy approach that, I think, people think it's like a lack of preparation or whatever, but it's not. It's an intentional strategy and it's very effective. And that's why, he's at a very small team. If I had to guess, like Biden's reelection team is probably 50 times bigger than Trump's team. Yeah, Trump is up 22 points on Biden in the Vegas bookie odds. So it's a hyper effective team. So it's very impressive.
Wow. Well, and now both candidates are accepting Bitcoin because the last time Trump tweeted, I think all of a sudden President Biden turned on crypto donations. So, okay, last couple of questions. You were such an advocate and fighter during the whole GBTC saga before it was converted to an ETF. I just wanted to kind of give you a platform to share any takeaways or lessons or what you want people to know, because you guys did end up sort of, it worked out in a way, right? Luckily, people didn't lose their money. I know there were fears around everything happening, and was the fund going to get dissolved in some way? So what's your take on everything ever since that was converted to an ETF?
Well, first, I just wanted to say, congratulations to everyone who's a GBTC shareholder who was able to leave that product and go to a less predatory product and get the full value of their money out. So kudos, congratulations. And I think that was a huge win for the investing public and for the Bitcoin community. Second, I think what I learned from that experience is that activism is effective. Even when everyone says it's not, or it can't be, or the powers that be are too big, that's what every power that be that doesn't want you to do something says. Oh, it's impossible. It's impossible to do anything about this situation. Nothing is impossible. If you build enough political momentum, if you build enough grassroots support for a topic, the impossible becomes possible. And I can tell you that if the SEC had not made the decision to convert that ETF, GBTC would have been open regardless. And the amount of pressure that was being created on the SEC, I won't take any credit for their decision to do the ETFs, but they saw very clearly the harm that was happening to retail by not letting those products move forward and the liability it was creating. And so, I would too many people take the party line of the powers that be rather than just doing the thing that is authentically the right thing to do. And if you have if you're on the right side of history, that's the most powerful weapon you can have towards building momentum for something. So start your activism small. Have realistic expectations of what can be achieved in the short term, so that people can get confidence in your plan. But like, small can snowball into big very quickly, and it's very powerful. So that was a great experience, and I think there's a lot of opportunity, even from just a business perspective, with activist investing for our industry. Like, we need more activists ensuring that our industry does the right thing in times where they don't want to.
Yeah, there's power in numbers, and we certainly can put pressure on these agencies and on candidates. So people who believe in this and who want to get their voice heard should definitely go for it. One way that I've had the chance to get to know you and your families through the Bitcoin conference. I'm so excited for Nashville, where I get to co-host with your amazing mom, the 3rd annual women's brunch. I cannot wait for it. It's going to be amazing. And I give a lot of credit to the conference because I came knowing pretty much no one. I brought my best friend 3 years ago. I can't believe it, 2021. And I just I released my podcast and I handed out little cards that had a QR code. And in many ways, like, I owe at least some of the success to your conference. And I've always felt like it was just the place where I launched Coin Stories. So can you share a little bit about the conference and what people can expect in Nashville? Because people are getting very, very excited, and we're going to be announcing the Women of Bitcoin brunch plans very soon. So stay tuned.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, the conference is a representation of the type of community that we want to build for Bitcoin. One that is open to anyone. Everyone is welcomed. It's a big celebration. It's a big party. It's a place where people create businesses, launch businesses, invest into businesses, find a job.
I didn't know anyone. So if you want to work in Bitcoin or just make Bitcoin friends, come. You don't have to know a soul.
Yeah, I mean, it's when we created the Bitcoin conference, it was modeled after the very first Bitcoin conference, and our goal is to inspire people to action. And so I thank you for sharing that story, Nat. I didn't know that you had launched your podcast at 21, but there's all sorts of amazing stories of people launching things that start very small at first and then become very big over time. And so I'm just incredibly proud of what the conference has achieved. This year we have an incredible lineup of speakers. We have a lot of speakers that we haven't announced yet that are going to be, I think, extremely exciting and elevating of the conversation. I would frame this conference this year as a historic conference, and it's on pace to be our biggest ever. It's in Nashville, Tennessee, which is the first time we've held it in Nashville. Natalie, as long as you've been going to the conference, has always been in Miami. But before we were in Miami, it was in California, and we were changing cities every year. And then COVID came. And so we kind of got stuck in Miami. Not stuck, we love Miami, but we were in Miami for 3 years in a row. And it got a little, been there, done that. And so we want to keep the conference fresh. We want the conference to absorb more and more cultures from around the country. And so the conference is back on its rotation around the US. And so going to Nashville has kind of created the opportunity to incorporate the country music culture, the, American cowboy culture. I think the theme is Electric Cowboy. And so, we want to kind of embrace all these different parts of the United States that maybe have different interests or different styles, and, make Bitcoin welcoming to them. So we're really excited about it. And I think people are going to have a lot of fun. I think Nashville is going to be kind of in shock afterwards, because there's never been a conference like this in Nashville. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, it is. I'm so excited. Yeah, I've really fond memories from the last three conferences. It really is the biggest conference that you'll go to. I've traveled to many countries now doing Bitcoin conferences, but this is like the biggest, the one that you want to be at. So I'm really excited. And yeah, it was funny. My girlfriend and I, we would hand out the business cards with my QR code of the first couple episodes in the bathroom queue for the men, because for the girls there was no line, but now hopefully that won't, we've got more and more women coming. So
last year's women's crunch was huge, and I think this one is going to be like massive. I mean, it's like y'all
I
are
love it.
really doing a fantastic
Yeah.
job of championing that.
Well, thank you for that, David. Okay, normally I start with this, but I have to ask you because we started with Trump. That's the biggest news of the last couple of weeks. But can you offer a little more of your backstory? Because you really have been in Bitcoin for so long. I know that, you pretty much just went into the working world in Bitcoin, right? And built this media company. You built up this conference. I mean, can you share your backstory for those maybe who aren't as familiar with it and the lessons learned?
Yeah, so I got into Bitcoin in 2012. I was in college. My background was finance. I was going to go work in investment banking. And, I was already a Ron Paul supporter at the time. And like when Ron Paul lost the election, and I kind of felt like the political system was broken. A friend reached out to me about Bitcoin, and that's kind of like what started my investigation into it. So I bought my first Bitcoins in November of 2012 after the first halving.
Wow.
And then I
I'm
was
jealous.
22 at the time. And then I went to the first Bitcoin conference. This was, I think, May of 2013. And I was blown away by how smart everyone was. Like I thought I had interacted with smart people, and it was like these were the smartest people I had ever interacted with. And they were working on this, on Bitcoin for free in their free times, on nights and weekends. And I was like, anything that can attract this type of intellectual capital to it, where people work for free on something, I'm going to have regret for the rest of my life if I don't jump on this. And so I, at that point, decided to go all in on Bitcoin and start my own business in Bitcoin. And I had zero real world experience. And so I've kind of failed forward, I guess, for the last 12 years. We built I think the world's largest Bitcoin media organization conference, and one of the most active Bitcoin investment arms as well. And we've kind of done it all too. Like the part of the reason I have the perspective on Bitcoin that I do is because, I was there when the first ICOs happened. My friends were behind Ethereum launching. I was there when enterprise blockchain happened. And so, I kind of went through these cycles where everything was kind of a child of Bitcoin. There wasn't really this monolithic culture of, Bitcoin only and everything else is shit. It was like we were kind of exploring these ideas in real time as they were kind of invented for their first time. Like, could this be a viable thing? And by 2018, I really saw like how much bullshit there was, I guess, let's just say, in the crypto blockchain world. And I really only had conviction in Bitcoin. And so 2018 was like a very rough year for our business. Like we almost went under in 2018. And so it was like, if we're going to go under, like if we're going to, go through this type of hell, like we need to go through this type of hell for something that we actually have conviction in, so that if it doesn't work out how we want it to work out, at least we don't have regret. And so in 2018, we went all in on being Bitcoin only. I think we were the first company in the world that was like, let's say, agnostic, that then decided to pivot their strategy to just focusing on Bitcoin. But I don't like these other ideas that people have worked on, the concept of an ICO, the concept of, a digital collectible, the concept of, a DAO. Like we think these ideas are cool and interesting ideas. We just, don't think that these other protocols are viable for a variety of different reasons. And so I would love to see a world where, one day on Bitcoin, a business owner can create a company. They can, issue public equity that's anchored or time stamped to Bitcoin. They can sell that equity to the global markets. People around the world can invest by sending Bitcoin to their address, and we can completely democratize access to capital markets. We can democratize, the ability for people to raise money from anywhere in the world. These are superpowers that Bitcoin has. And so like I want to see Bitcoin embrace its superpowers. But I like, everything in due time. So it's, like when these things are ready to be done, then we let them happen. But, so like we see an exciting world for Bitcoin. A lot of people want to cast Bitcoin in this, like it's digital gold box. One of the main people who want to call Bitcoin digital gold is people from crypto, because once you call Bitcoin digital gold and you put it in that box and that's all it can ever be, then now all of a sudden there's justification for why we need all these other protocols that are doing these different things. It's like we actually don't need them. They can be built on layer. There's so many possibilities of how to engineer things in Bitcoin that as long as we're working from the forcing function that is happening on Bitcoin, if there's actual market demand, there's a way to get it done. So anyway, I guess this is a long story to just say like we've kind of done it all and seen it all. My entire professional career has been shaped by Bitcoin, and I have been humbled so many times in this journey that I've realized that not just me, almost everyone's been humbled in this industry, and so it's like there's no one who knows how this is going to play out. So trust in the free market, trust in capitalism, trust in the game theory of Bitcoin, and just lean into that. And then everything else will work itself out. So anyway, long answer to your question, but yeah, I'm a hardcore all in Bitcoin maxi.
Yeah, I can tell. And it's crazy. You make me realize how early we really are. But at the same time, we've come so far to have presidential candidates talking about Bitcoin. So where can people find you? Any final calls to action or where you want to send people?
Yeah, check out bitcoinmagazine.com or the conference, b.tc/conference. And you can find me on and you can find me on Twitter. So people enjoy the next few months. I think it's going to be a wild ride, and look forward to enjoying the ride with you.
Thank you so much, David. Hope to have you back on soon. See you in Nashville. You in Cali.
Yeah, see you in Nashville. Ciao.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Coin Stories. If you're listening on the Fountain app, you can show your support and share your thoughts by sending a boost. Last month's top episode was with Michael Saylor at Michael E. Sparks, boosted 777 sats and said, "We're still early." Another popular episode was with Ed Dowd at Justin Affronti, boosted 500 sats and said, "Paul Ryan actively talking about US CBDCs, and some folks think it won't happen in our lifetime. Gradually, then suddenly." Great job, Natalie and Ed. Thanks so much, Justin. I love reading and replying to your boosts, so download Fountain on iOS or Android today and make sure you're subscribed to Coin Stories. This show is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Nothing should constitute as official investment advice, and you should always do your own research. My inbox is open if you want to share feedback or guest suggestions. Just reach out at Natalie@talkingbitcoin.com. I'll see you next time.